Hello YouTubers and preppers, I'm Evita, Cooks and Preps, and today I'm coming to you with my healthier version of the classic arroz con gandules or rice with pigeon peas. This recipe has been in the making for several months, however, recently I was inspired to share it by a good friend, somebody we consider family. AP, this one is for you. And with this recipe, I kick off my challenge of creating nutrient-dense, rich in minerals and vitamins, heart-healthy, and diabetic-friendly meals. And I also want to take this opportunity to invite all of you to send me recipes for the challenge. Who knows, maybe I'll select your recipe and shout you out with your personalized video. And I really hope you enjoy this recipe. And for more tutorials and recipes like this one, consider subscribing to the channel. Give me a thumbs up and comment for the YouTube algorithm. And don't forget to activate the notification bell so you don't miss out any of my videos. Okay, for this recipe, I'll be using the organic white quinoa that has been soaked, rinsed 3 times and strained. If you can soak the quinoa overnight, that will be ideal, or for a minimum of 2 to 3 hours prior to cooking it. I'll be using some pigeon peas, and today I'm using the canned peas that I drained and rinsed to remove the excess salt and the preservatives. Unfortunately, my pigeon peas are not ready, however they look amazing, and I'm really praying for an awesome harvest this year. This time of year I get lucky and my local supermarket offers spiral hams for less than $1 per pound, and I usually buy 2, one for the Easter dinner and the other one for cooking. And what I have here is the spiral ham that I washed and cut into small cubes. Ham is a traditional ingredient for the arroz con gandules in Puerto Rico, especially during the Christmas season. Some people use the ham powder in place of the ham. However, I won't be using it today, really because I want to keep this recipe as healthy as possible, and also because I don't think that it's necessary, because this particular spiral ham that I purchased is very flavorful and it's not necessary to add anything else to it. Of course, if I'm making rice, we need some sofrito criollo, and you can find the recipe right up here. For the seasoning, I'll be using the classic combination of adobo, sazón, and all-purpose seasoning. And I'm using my own blend because when I make my seasonings, I make them lower in sodium, additive-free, and of course I use the herbs from my garden, and I'm trying to keep this recipe as healthy as possible. For the oil, I'll be using this annatto seed oil that I made using rice bran oil, which is this one that we have right here. And I chose this particular oil mainly because it is heart healthy. And soon I'll be doing a tutorial with the many benefits of rice bran oil and how it may not be a bad idea to substitute your typical corn and canola oil that we're so used to. I've been incorporating a variety of oils that I find very interesting, and I've researched all these oils in comparison to the traditional corn and canola oil, and based on my research, I like what I see so far. And I think you'll find that information very interesting and useful, so hopefully I can put that together for you real soon. If you've been following me for a while, you know by now that in addition to the sofrito criollo, I always add fresh ingredients. And today I have some red and green bell peppers, Spanish olives, and of course from the garden, the 2 cousins, cilantro and culantro, also known as recaito. Some people call it Mexican cilantro. It has many names, but it's all one of the same. And if you've never tried cilantro and culantro or recaito, I encourage you to give it a try. These days you can find it in most local supermarkets, and you can even find the plants in most big box hardware stores. So check it out if you've never tried recaito or culantro or cilantro for that matter. And of course, as an optional ingredient, I always like to add a touch of hot sauce for an added kick. Anytime you add a little bit of hot sauce to rice, it just adds another level of flavor. Okay guys, let me show you just how quickly and easily you can put this one pot of amazingly delicious dish together. Today I'm using my small aluminum pot that I inherited from my mother-in-law. With the oil being preheated, we're going to very quickly just drop the cooked ham. Remember, the ham is cooked, so we don't have to cook it thoroughly. You just want to crisp up the ham slightly. We're going to coat it with the oil, and check it out. Look at that color. The object of using annatto seed oil is for the color, so it doesn't really add much flavor. And I have the oil on medium high. You don't want the oil too hot because annatto seed oil tends to burn, and when annatto seed oil burns, it turns bitter, and we don't want that. Okay, the ham is picking up some of that annatto seed oil color. And at this point, we can add sofrito criollo. And this is another layer of flavor. I'm gonna continue building onto the flavor of the rice. I know at this point, because the sofrito criollo has a little bit of moisture, the annatto seed oil is not gonna burn. So we are going to increase the heat to high because I want to evaporate some of that sofrito criollo liquids, and I also want to bring the oil to temperature before adding the rest of the ingredients. Already smells amazing. And I'm gonna be adding the all-purpose seasoning, the sazón criollo, and the adobo. The all-purpose seasoning is a combination of different herbs and spices such as onion, garlic, dry oregano. It does have a hint of cumin, which I find it to be very pleasant. And check it out, our sofrito, which this mixture right here is often referred to as sofrito, is coming together very nicely. Now, one thing I will mention is that when I make rice, I don't use tomato sauce. You will find some recipes out there calling for tomato sauce, but you're gonna see that for this recipe, you really don't need to add any tomato sauce. Okay, when the oil comes to temperature, as you can see, the water from the sofrito has evaporated and it's really sizzling. So that's exactly what we're looking for. At this point, we wanna add the quinoa. And I have here the quinoa that we've soaked, rinsed, and drained. Now I'm making enough arroz con gandules to feed anywhere between 4 to 6 people. So I'm making quite a bit of arroz con gandules using this quinoa. You can definitely make more or less, depends on how many people you'll be feeding today. Okay, with the heat still on high, I'm going to toss the quinoa with the herbs and the spices and the ham. And I'm also going to attempt to toast it lightly. Now, of course, because the pot is not that big, it's not going to roast or toast, but I do want it to get nicely coated with the mixture. I have not added the pigeon peas yet, but I do want to make sure that the rice is nicely coated with the spices. Keep an eye on the temperature just in case, and make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom. It shouldn't stick at all because we have quite a bit of oil in the pan, but you still want to keep an eye on it. You don't want to burn it, okay? So look at that. The quinoa has already picked up that nice color from the annatto seed and the sazón criollo. Okay, at this point, I'm going to be adding the bell peppers. And just by adding the bell peppers, it starts to take a different appearance. The red and the green bell pepper adds a real nice contrast to the quinoa. Okay, at this point, we still have the heat on high. We're going to add the water. One of the mistakes that most people make when they cook quinoa is overhydrating the quinoa. They add too much water and the quinoa turns out gummy and sometimes mushy. And that's not what I'm aiming for. When I make arroz con gandules, I like my rice to be cooked, however, loose. And you'll see the consistency of the quinoa when we're done. And finally, we're going to add the pigeon peas. I like to add these at the end, especially when I use canned pigeon peas. They tend to fall apart. And I'm gonna gently mix them all in with the quinoa. I still have the heat on high, and I'm gonna keep it that way for a couple more minutes. You don't want to overmix it either. Remember, we're not making rice, we're actually making quinoa. The grains are very tiny. You don't want them to break apart. Once the quinoa comes to a boil, which is happening very quickly, as you can see, we're gonna wait until the liquid evaporates by maybe 1/3. I'm gonna see if I can just keep you on so that you can see when it happens, because it does happen very quickly. Check it out, it's bubbling very rapidly. And that's a telltale sign that we're getting closer to the time when we have to reduce the heat, stir the quinoa, and cover it. But let's see, we're almost there. Okay, we're ready. I am going to stir the quinoa one more time. Smells amazing in here already, you guys. And I really can't wait to try this amazing quinoa rice and peas. We don't want to overmix it. And I also want to separate it from the sides of the pot. Like so. Shake it. And at this point, I'm going to cover the quinoa and cook it covered on low for 20 minutes. Just like rice, the quinoa takes about the same time. The only difference is that when you cook quinoa, after it's gone through its cooking process, it's very important that you let it sit covered for at least 5 to 7 minutes untouched. And that is just one of the tricks that I learned when I cook quinoa, and allowing the quinoa to rest for about 5 to 7 minutes. The quinoa will turn out nice and fluffy, and it'll look almost like rice. The sliced olives and fresh herbs, I use them as finishers and add them right before serving to imbue more flavor to the quinoa. And the quinoa will pick up the notes from the brine of the olives, and of course that delicious aroma and flavor from the cilantro and the culantro. And I guarantee you that if you try this technique, you're gonna thank me later. So try this at home and let me know what you think in the comments. I did not add the hot sauce to the quinoa because when I was in the middle of making the quinoa, I realized that I have a guest that does not like hot sauce. And just like rice, when you mix it from the bottom up. The best thing about this recipe is that I don't know if it's good or bad, because maybe somebody that's watching enjoys what we call pegao, which is the crispy rice on the bottom when we make arroz con gandules. But in this case, you pretty much get nothing but quinoa, which means that you get a higher yield. And this particular recipe, like I said, it feeds anywhere between 4 to 6 very hungry people, and you might even have some left over for lunch. So check it out. It looks and smells amazing. And this rice could be served with some pork roast or pernil. The sky is really the limit when it comes to this rice. So check it out. Smells amazing. I really can't wait to try it. In fact, I'm gonna grab a spoon because I want to taste it right now. Okay, let me make sure I get some olives and a little bit of everything in one bite. And look at that. I sure hope that you can see on the screen the texture of the rice. I wish you could smell it, to be honest with you. Smell-o-vision will be very handy right about now. Smells incredible. The grains of the quinoa are nice and loose, like I said. They're perfectly cooked. I really can't wait to try it, so I'm gonna be quiet. Ay, ay, ay. Oh my goodness. This is so delicious. I really can't wait for dinner. In fact, I'm going to put a little bit more on the spoon because I really can't wait until dinner. Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yikes. Friends, you really have to try it. Ay, Dios mío. Wow. And just like that, we transformed this tiny grain into a healthier version of the traditional arroz con gandules. For more healthy options and traditions like this one, consider subscribing, give us a thumbs up, and comment for the YouTube algorithm, and activate the bell so you don't miss out on any of my videos. And until next time, I'm Evita, cooks and preps. Bon appetit. You really have to try it.